have not only a new perspective, but an opportunity to show myself in a different light and to entertain the fans out there on the golf course.
Golf fans have spent years arguing over Bryson DeChambeau, whether he represents innovation or everything wrong with modern golf. What looks like arrogance is often just visibility. What looks like disruption is really a system colliding with tradition. His rise isn't only about distance or data, it's about forcing a conservative sport to confront change it never asked for, and that confrontation begins with how he plays the game. The scientist approach to golf. Bryson DeChambeau entered professional golf with an identity that immediately set him apart. While many players relied on feel developed through repetition, he leaned on physics, geometry, and data. His use of single-length irons, launch monitors, and biomechanical analysis earned him the nickname The Scientist, capturing both curiosity and skepticism within the sport.
Am I the best player in the world? It's not for me to decide. I'm just going to go out there and play the best golf I possibly can and try to get that darn ball in the hole quicker than everybody else.
Early success reinforced his belief that performance could be engineered. He viewed golf courses as systems to be solved, breaking down launch angles, spin rates, and landing zones rather than trusting instinct alone. But this approach unsettled traditionalists. Critics argued his routines slowed play and reduced creativity, questioning whether heavy technical planning could survive pressure. DeChambeau countered that science refined artistry rather than replacing it, using data to reduce uncertainty. What made his rise controversial was not just how he played, but what he symbolized, a challenge to golf's long-held identity and its resistance to innovation. His scientific approach challenged how golf was played, but it didn't yet challenge how golfers were built. If distance was the next frontier, data alone wouldn't reach it. So DeChambeau chose a risk that would redefine his career and possibly shorten it. Extreme body transformation. DeChambeau's most visible shift occurred away from the course. Between 2019 and 2020, he dramatically increased his body mass, gaining more than 40 pounds of muscle in pursuit of greater swing speed and distance. The change was deliberate, supported by structured strength training and strict nutritional planning.
My body definitely has changed, so my swing is probably going to change as well. That's part of the process I'm trying to figure out. I was a lot skinnier and leaner when I was hitting it.
When competition resumed, the effect was immediate. He became one of the longest hitters in professional golf and won the US Open using an aggressive strategy that prioritized power over placement. For supporters, the transformation signaled a new frontier in athletic preparation. For critics, it raised concerns about sustainability. Questions soon followed. Could his joints withstand the strain? Would the added weight compromise flexibility and endurance? Medical experts and former professionals openly discussed the long-term risks, while commentators debated whether golf was drifting toward physical extremes once reserved for other sports. DeChambeau's transformation from lean athlete to powerhouse reshaped both his game and public perception. Adding over 40 pounds of muscle in under 2 years, he aimed to increase swing speed, driving distance, and scoring potential. Supporters hailed the innovation, while critics questioned sustainability and injury risk. The experiment immediately impacted results, with major victories and long drives redefining competition. Yet it also sparked debate about the limits of athletic optimization in golf, revealing both the promise and fragility of extreme physical transformation. DeChambeau argued that his body was simply another piece of equipment to optimize. He framed the transformation as calculated, not reckless. Yet injuries soon interrupted his momentum, complicating that narrative and exposing the fragility of the experiment. Over time, his physique became symbolic of a larger tension within golf, how far athletes should go to gain advantage. It reshaped how he was viewed, not only as a competitor, but as a test case for modern athletic limits. By rebuilding his body, DeChambeau didn't just change how far he could hit the ball, he changed what winning started to look like. And in doing so, he reopened a debate golf had never fully settled. Did power now matter more than precision? Power versus precision. Debate. DeChambeau's emphasis on distance revived a long-standing argument in golf about what truly defines excellence. His strategy relied on statistical efficiency, shorter approach shots, higher birdie probabilities, and greater tolerance for missed fairways.
A little bit lower flighting, a little bit more control with my half shots.
On certain courses, the model worked convincingly. He dismantled layouts designed to reward accuracy, proving that power could neutralize hazards once considered decisive. Supporters saw evolution. Traditionalists saw imbalance. Course architects responded by lengthening holes and narrowing landing areas, effectively redesigning competition around containment rather than creativity. Tournament officials adjusted setups, attempting to restore the value of placement without rewriting the sport entirely. DeChambeau's emphasis on distance reignited golf's long-standing debate between power and precision. By maximizing driving length and statistical efficiency, he challenged courses designed to reward accuracy, forcing both players and architects to adapt. Supporters saw evolution, traditionalists saw imbalance. His strategy worked on certain holes but exposed the limits of relying on brute force, especially in majors. By making distance a central factor, DeChambeau's approach questioned what defines skill in modern golf, highlighting the ongoing tension between raw power and calculated precision. Among players, opinions split quietly. Some began training to distance themselves. Others maintained that majors would always favor precision, patience, and emotional control. DeChambeau rejected the idea that the two qualities were opposites, arguing that distance itself was a form of control. But his inconsistency highlighted the limits of that view. Power could tilt outcomes, but it could not stabilize them. So that's the takeaway. DeChambeau proved that power could reshape how golf is played, but it meant challenging traditions that had defined the sport for decades. And it raised a bigger question: how much disruption would golf tolerate from one player? So let's go to clashes with golf traditionalists. Clashes with golf traditionalists. As DeChambeau's profile grew, friction followed. His deliberate pace of play drew warnings and penalties. His technical explanations in interviews were often interpreted as condescending. Several public disputes with officials and media personnel reinforced the perception of conflict.
Combination of things have allowed me to have not only a new perspective, but an opportunity to show myself in a different light and to entertain the fans out there on the golf course.
To some fans, he appeared arrogant. To others, misunderstood. Veteran players emphasized etiquette, tempo, and emotional restraint as core values of professional golf, suggesting that innovation should exist within those boundaries. DeChambeau pushed back against that framing. He argued that emotion and intellectual rigor were not signs of disrespect, but honesty. Yet televised moments of frustration and equipment disputes hardened public opinion. Teammates in team competitions described a more cooperative personality, highlighting preparation and professionalism away from cameras. The contrast suggested that perception was shaped more by isolated incidents than by daily behavior. As DeChambeau rose, his unorthodox methods clashed with golf's traditional culture. Slow play, technical explanations, and visible frustration drew criticism from fans, officials, and veteran players, framing him as controversial. He argued that intellectual rigor and honesty shouldn't be mistaken for disrespect, while teammates described a disciplined, cooperative personality. The tension revealed a deeper question about individuality in professional golf. How far can a player innovate before tradition resists? DeChambeau's rise illustrates the cost and consequence of challenging the sport's established norms. Still, reputation matters. His rise forced golf culture to confront how much deviation it was willing to tolerate. Rather than adapt himself to fit tradition, DeChambeau accepted resistance as the cost of being different. DeChambeau learned that changing the game also meant colliding with its culture. But those clashes didn't stay on the course. They reshaped how the public saw him. What followed was a reputation built as much by perception as by performance. Media persona and fan polarization. As DeChambeau's results improved, his public image became increasingly difficult to separate from his performance. Interviews that focused on technical explanations often came across as detached or overly analytical, reinforcing the perception that he was distant from both fans and fellow players. His body language on the course, especially during moments of frustration, further shaped how audiences interpreted his personality.
There is a line. I'd say YouTube Golf has helped me out in that, understanding how to react and also control myself.
Social media accelerated this divide. Short clips of confrontations, missed shots, or sharp comments traveled faster than full rounds or long-term progress. Supporters defended his honesty, arguing that he simply expressed what many players concealed. Critics saw entitlement and a lack of accountability. Unlike traditional fan favorites who built appeal through humility or quiet consistency, DeChambeau's transparency created discomfort. He spoke openly about physics, equipment tolerances, and course flaws, sometimes contradicting tournament organizers or governing bodies. This positioned him less as a performer and more as a challenger to institutional authority. Over time, the debate around him became less about golf and more about identity. Was he an innovator unfairly misunderstood, or a talented player unwilling to adapt socially to the sport he dominated? Both narratives gained traction, often depending on a single moment rather than years of results. What remained consistent was polarization. He rarely occupied neutral ground. For modern golf audiences, DeChambeau became a symbol of how individuality can attract loyalty and resistance in equal measure. So that's the takeaway. DeChambeau became one of the most polarizing figures in modern golf, but it meant every career decision would now be judged through that divided lens. And it raised a bigger question: what would happen when a player already at the center of controversy chose to walk away from the PGA Tour? So let's go to Live Golf Defection. Live Golf Defection. DeChambeau's move from the PGA Tour to Live Golf marked the most consequential shift of his career. At the time, the decision was framed publicly around opportunity, innovation, and global expansion. Privately, it also reflected uncertainty about his future on a tour increasingly defined by scrutiny and pressure.
Oh, that's a pigeonholed question. All right. Shoot, I don't think any of us are smart enough to do that. There's so much that goes on with that.
Financial incentives were substantial, but the reputational cost was immediate. Critics accused him of prioritizing security over competition. Supporters argued he was exercising agency in a sport that historically offered players limited control over their professional paths. The move altered how his achievements were evaluated. Performances on LIV were often discounted by traditional media, while ranking points became scarce. For a player already navigating public division, the transition deepened existing skepticism. DeChambeau maintained that the change offered creative freedom and reduced physical strain. Shorter schedules and team formats aligned with his long-term goals after years of injuries and intense scrutiny. Yet the question remained unresolved. Would his legacy be defined by innovation and independence, or by separation from golf's most established platform? His career became intertwined with the broader debate about the sport's structure itself. So that's the takeaway. DeChambeau chose independence, even at the cost of legitimacy in the sport's main arena. But it meant his career would now be judged not just by performance, but by whether he could still matter at golf's highest level. And it raised a bigger question: could he redefine himself after stepping outside the PGA Tour's spotlight? So let's go to Reinvention and Major Championship comebacks. Reinvention and Major Championship comebacks. Following injuries, criticism, and structural change, DeChambeau faced the challenge of redefining his career without abandoning what made him distinctive. His physical training became more balanced, prioritizing durability over maximum mass. His public tone softened slightly, though his analytical identity remained intact.
It was nice that I was able to hold myself under the pressure and go, you know what, I'm going to fight for every shot.
In major championships, his performances fluctuated, but occasional contention reminded observers of his ceiling. These moments were less explosive than his early victories, marked more by restraint than spectacle. Technically, he simplified parts of his approach, relying less on radical experimentation and more on repeatable fundamentals. The data remained, but it no longer dominated every narrative. Rather than framing his return as redemption, DeChambeau described it as recalibration. He spoke about sustainability, learning from failure, and accepting uncertainty in a sport built on it. Whether he returns to dominance or settles into inconsistency, his rise has already reshaped professional golf. Not through trophies alone, but through the questions he forced the sport to confront about progress, identity, and control. For Bryson DeChambeau, this isn't just about record-breaking drives or headline-making controversies. It's about challenging tradition, testing limits, and redefining what modern golf can be. What comes next may matter more than the wins, the criticism, or the debates, because his rise has already changed the conversation about the sport itself,